Thank you. I promise you today, we've heard so much of data here, and for someone who's actually coming from a consumer research industry, we have been looking at data more often and in terms of more volume of data. Today's session, fortunately, it's not mouthful, at least I can tell you that. So it's about navigating data privacy and security in the AI-driven era. AI is now the more abused word these days, so you will probably see that hearing more often. But I think there are 4 pillars that we're going to talk about before I kind of jump and get starting asking questions on that. One, of course, is the data privacy. I think this has increasingly become one of the critical points with so much of AI and so much of data getting processed. So there is increasingly higher focus on data privacy here, and add this to the regulations of GDPR and India Data Protection Act. The second, of course, is the data security that we have been talking about, which is so much of cyber attacks and stuff like that. It's more important than ever before kind of look at security. The third, of course, is the ethical AI usage here, because I think this is increasingly becoming more important that AI is used in a fashion, or AI applications are used in a fashion which is ethical, which basically does not perpetuate any bias or, for that matter, infringe on rights. And final is about trust here, because I think that's a bedrock of all that we have been discussing here. So how do we ensure that the customer trust is stayed on, because that's the bedrock for growth. And I think from data protection, how do we ensure that we advocate customers in terms of how the data is going to be used and how it's going to be taken forward. So with that, actually, let me just, for today, have this discussion started here. Mohit, first to you, actually, because the panel that we have is pretty interesting. You have people from across category here, one from FMCG, one from financial services, the other, of course, from the hospitality and retail. So Monish, I would be actually focusing on protecting customer trust in AI-driven operations. So let me just start by asking this question. How is SBI Card ensuring robust data security in AI-powered credit card operations?
Thanks, Balaji, and welcome to everybody here. I think, like you rightly said, the fact is it's not if, but it's a how you protect the customer data, because it's a given. And given the fact that with the DPDPA already out and the rules probably going to come in any time now, it's pretty clear that it's now a regulatory requirement as well. And as a regulated entity, as a financial services entity, as a brand that is a banker to the nation, it's all the more incumbent upon us to actually lead the path. And this is something that we've always known, we've always worked on it. But more in terms of putting the strategies behind it, I think it starts right from the way you acquire data. And that is most important, because one of the key pillars of the Act also is what is the data that you're acquiring. So on a need-to-know basis, and we are very, very clear about that we will only acquire, store, and transmit data that is required to be acquired, transmitted, and stored. Because, you will see most of the application forms, you end up getting a whole plethora of data, which even the customer says, on a 10-pager application form, why do you actually need to know a lot of this stuff? It is just because somewhere down the line, somebody thought, kal ye data kabhi kaam aa sakta hai. Let's just keep it and store it.
Good to know.
And then, you have got, I think what the gentleman earlier also mentioned, you're swamped with so much data that you don't even know what to do with it. And now today, it's going to be a sword hanging on your neck, because you have data that you don't even know. So how are you going to protect something that you don't even know? So the first part was in terms of making sure that we only acquire and store data that we have. Second is organizations such as ours, large organizations who actually do a lot of work with partners. How we transmit this data and who we partner with is also extremely important, because there is a lot of risk in terms of the data, which is not just with us, but with our partner. And today, as a primary fiduciary, it is our responsibility and our CEO's neck on the line, literally, for a 200 crore penalty if any of this data gets breached even at a partner's end. So we are extremely careful about who we partner with, the ethical standards of the partners, and what kind of data protection do they have at their end. So we have, before we get into any kind of an agreement with them, InfoSec will really take them through the ringer to find out that are there controls and policies as secure as ours, because they need to be, in fact, they need to be more secure than ours, because they are the ones who are actually working with our data. And thirdly is the most important factor, which is how are you using this data? And this entire data flow that you have to be very careful about where this data is flowing out and how it is flowing out. For example, just to give you an example, all of us probably were not 2-3 years ago, we would have seen that, in a CRM, the first thing that the agent used to check is for authentication used to be the mobile number. Today, you can't do that because the mobile number is a PII data and you can't give it to your agent to check on. So you mask all the data. So whether it's in transmission or whether it's in terms of visibility, you either mask it, encrypt it to make sure that as far as possible, you are able to secure this data. And if you need authentication, the simplest thing today is the OTP. So I think technology has actually given us a lot of access to be able to protect the customer data that is with us. And as a fiduciary, it is our responsibility to make sure that we do not infringe upon that trust.
That's interesting because you spoke about how the partnership is also going to be very critical. Yeah. So Puneet, over to you. And this is specifically about, this is something that we heard, personalization, and how do you balance this personalization with privacy, given where we are right now. So how do you ensure transparency and security when collecting data for eco-conscious and ethical consumers?
Thank you so much, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. See, I would not distinguish between the two, eco-conscious and the other category, because every data point is sacred, right? Whatever you do out of that, whatever you cull out of that is something very close to the brand, to the company, to the customers, what you're serving for. And I think when you're collecting, the sense of the lens should be safety, security, and collaboration, plus the entire segmentation, what you're taking care of as a data point. And this should be a security point all across as policies.
Perfect. Okay, now, Sumit, I think this is something which has been lot of spoken about in terms of loyalty. So safeguarding loyalty and from a CRM perspective. So securing customer-driven, AI-driven loyalty programs, what is Bikanervala doing actually in this person?
So I think everybody in this room is our customer, right?
Yeah,
so we
absolutely.
have all the data. So whatever laddus, whatever the flavor, whatever the spiciness you have, so we know. So connecting to that, so we have very limited data right now. So we are not, we are very online, say we not started yet, right? So, but we have offline data enough, like we are more than 5 million data, because consumer-based data. But we are running a different kind of a campaign to attract those customers to our outlets and all. But the happens is that there are so many interests, right? We have more than 2,000 products and all. So how to connect that? How to link those product data to consumer? The different kind of consumer have different patterns, right? They eat at a different time. They have a seasonal buying. They have some occasional buying. So yeah, we are doing it, but it's very early to doing and making those changes in our system.
Okay, so you're saying there is some limited
Right.
thing happening right now. Okay, and this is largely because a lot of this is offline.
Offline data.
Okay, sure. Monish, back to you again. What are the approaches to maintaining customer trust? Because that's something that we spoke about a little while earlier, while using AI, especially given where we are right now in this situation and this era, basically.
So I think the first thing is for each one of us as a principal and as a consumer also to realize that AI is not a silver bullet. I think that is one of the big thoughts that everybody has about any technology, frankly. It seems to be the moment a new technology comes in, we think that it's going to be the panacea for everything. It's going to solve world hunger for all of us. No, it's not. It's going to probably make it easier for us to do a lot of our work. And I think that is the key point, because once we start understanding what it can do for us, we know what we can trust, both as a user of AI in terms of the organization and as a consumer. And the key to this is what we saw in the presentation earlier, which is what is the data set that we have. Because what AI is going to throw out is only what the base data really talks about. So, and especially when we talk about customer engagement, when we talk about hyper-personalization, when we talk about giving a shot to the customer in terms of the next best action, AI can ride on data and it can give you, we've talked about hallucinations and a lot of toxic work coming out. But most importantly, that is coming out because two things. One is that the data that we have is not very clean. Second is we don't even know what is the data that we're using. And the third is that we tend to think that if we are 60% right, we can go out and use it. That's where I think the approach needs to be slightly changed. You first need to know, what do you really want the data to do for you? Do you want it to pitch better? Do you want it to serve better? Or do you want it to predict better? Or do you want simply for it to be able to predict an early warning signal, a sentiment analysis? It's typically what we say in the contact center world, which is a simple use case. And these, I think, where we need to start with to build trust, like in any kind of relationship that you have is with the new technology, is start small. Do not think that you can solve all the problems. Identify the problems that you have. And this is something that we started much before, and I think a lot of organizations started much before we actually heard of the word AI. Because we were always using data, we were always using algorithms, we were always using what we call contextual relationship analysis. And that is something that is only getting augmented today by the sheer fact that the power of volume, velocity, and variety of data is so much. And the computing power behind is so much that now what used to take you maybe a month to analyze and then come back with the first model, today you can, your guys can do it in a matter of hours. The flip side of that is you have to be careful of the first results that you're getting in. So the first results that you get it probably may not be that accurate. Try and test it, get it back, and then iterate it. This is the strategy that we used. And we used it pretty successfully because you, as I said, build trust over a period of time. We are a 150-year-old brand, and while we've been a brand for the last 75 years post-independence, I'm sure that the brand trust wasn't built on the day one, and most of the new brands would agree to that. It takes time for you to be able to connect with the customer to make sure that you are doing the right thing for them. And that can happen only if you are able to display that trust by the actions that you have. And most importantly, I think, don't ever shy away from taking responsibility for a wrong decision. The customer is going to forgive you the first time, the second time, maybe not the third time, but at least if you made a mistake, own up to that mistake, and the customer will trust you.
Just a follow-up question to that. See, one of the things that people have been speaking about is about personalization. And I'm sure with AI coming in and also being analyzing a lot of this spend, is there anything that you would like to share in terms of how you have used internally within SBI Cards in terms of using the spending pattern and still be able to kind of look at building trust and from the fact that you were going to recommend a personalized product? So,
actually, I think that is the core of using any kind of a, I would not say AI again, I would say any kind of an analytical platform, let me put it. I think when we talk about building a relationship, the relationship actually starts with the fact is, what is it that you're offering the customer? And somebody asked me this question earlier on as well. The fact is, what makes a customer come to you and what makes a customer stay with you? These are two very different things, especially when we talk about credit card as a product. As a product, we are not a 16-digit card number. We are not a plastic. Nobody really buys us for the flashy plastic or the metal that we have. It is bought for the proposition that it offers. So this is the first part where it comes in, how we use data and how we use analytics behind data to identify which product is best suited to a customer. And increasingly, this is not only becoming a big game changer for us, but this is something that is required or going to get mandated very soon, because customer suitability, as all of us who probably been in the insurance and mutual fund business would know, customer suitability is the first thing that comes to mind when these products have matured. Similarly, in terms of credit cards, very soon we will find that customer suitability is something which is going to be equally important, because today, when we look at a tier 1 or a tier 2 customer, the customer already has probably, if I take your wallet, you probably have 3 cards in your wallet already. So if I have to be either the 4th card in your wallet, or I have to be the preferred card that you take out, I need to make sure that I am able to give you what you really want. Simple use case. You are walking down, I know how many are from Gurgaon, you're walking down Cyber Hub and suddenly you get a flash on your mobile app saying that there is a dining offer at this outlet with this card. That contextual nudge given to you at the right time would probably make you take out my card. And that's where the power of AI really comes in. Switch to the other side of what makes a customer stay with you. It's delivering on the promise. So I gave you the promise that I'll give you the best product, but I should be able to consistently deliver on that. And that is again where data and robust data AI comes into picture, because every time that you're making a transaction, every time that you're actually going to Bikanervala, and I know that you tend to pull out my card versus somebody else, or you pull out somebody else's card versus mine, I would want you to be able to do that consistently and repetitively. Another use case is what I'm really very, very fond of, which I call radar, which is, in our business, like I said, what is the product that you have? The product that you've taken is to actually swipe and do a transaction. And the worst thing that could happen is the transaction doesn't go through. And we've seen that in 80% of the time, this transaction doesn't go through because of certain, leaving aside technical errors, the fact is that probably you punched in the wrong pin on the pad. Very difficult with those small ones, especially for somebody like me with fat fingers, to be able to put in the right ones. But I know that this transaction got declined because you punched in a 1 instead of a 2. And if I am able to get back to you immediately, the chances are that you will be able to rectify it rather than you would take out the second card from your wallet. And that is what I do. Within 30 seconds, you will get a call back from me saying that, or an SMS and a call back, a voice message saying that, sorry, your card got declined because you punched in the wrong pin. You can re-punch in and you can do the transaction again. So it's how I make a promise to you and how I keep that promise. That is really getting augmented with data analytics and hopefully in the future with AI.
I think that's very interesting because brand promise, when your experience exceeds expectation, I think that's when you really can, absolutely. Now, on the same topic, Puneet, I just wanted to check, how is Arata using AI, especially when you're talking about personalized marketing, given the challenges that you're talking about from a perspective of customer privacy?
Okay, so basically we, have broken this down into 3 steps. During the pre-order stage, when the customer is generally, searching, or a discovery stage, we are on a platform called Quick Chat, which is powered by MobiQuick. What it does is whatever platform information it can get from across its category and domain, it brings that to us. For example, things like propensity of this particular customer, buying habits, what sort of behavior he has been on in the past sites, what sort of AOV, average order value, he has been buying. So all of that brings against those, and basis that we customize and send out messages to the customers. Second is, the stage would be during the order stage, while the person is ordering and buying some stuff. So we being a hair category brand, it's doing a cross or an upsell or a value addition to the product, whatever has been carted so far by the customer. So for example, if I'm putting maybe an anti-dandruff shampoo into my cart, I would, alongside put other, dandruff stuff with it. But again, also keeping in mind whether it's a male or a female. You don't want to, give a male product to a female or vice versa. So all those checkpoints have to be in place in order to do that, and then only you kind of value add and customize your, personalize all those interactions with the customer. Third is when the order is done, post sales. This is where we try again to push more of value additions on how to use the product, the tricks and trades, what are the maintenance activities that person can do for his or things what he has ordered for. So all these put together kind of creates that ecosystem where the personalization is taken care of.
Okay, great. Now, Sumit, I think there was a lot of talk about this breach, and I just want to understand what are the best practices for handling such sensitive customer information, even that Monish spoke about also earlier?
So when we started on our loyalty program and CRM, right? I mean, we don't have any kind of a protection or anything. So we don't have any authentication to get the data from our CRM. So we are using Microsoft Dynamics for our CRM and loyalty program. Now we have encrypted, right? Now you have encrypted all the data. I mean, you cannot have access without any, I mean, direct number, a phone number, you can't have it, right? Because multiple countries have a multiple different numbers, and multiple law of data protection law is also there, right? I mean, Dubai, we have a different law. US, we have a different law. So we need to also protect those. So we make all numbers or a phone number or everything, I mean, loyalty data is encrypted, right? And we also started doing the tokenization. So, tokenization helps us if somebody breaches to our data, because for only sake of protecting the law, I mean, protecting the protection, we have to make those changes and all. So we are doing it, but we wanted to do many things on protecting the thing, because we are in a different countries and all, right? Different laws we have to follow. If I collect any data from there also, so I need to keep it on a different manner. So that's how we are doing it. But it's a challenge for us to comply in those countries' laws and all. So that's the thing.
Anything, because this just, because you've been present in so many countries, anything that you have seen there which probably could be better prepared for us from India perspective? Anything that, because different countries, like you said, have different regulations and stuff like that. So anything that you've implemented maybe in Europe or other parts basically? Which
so Europe and US don't have any that much of issues. Mainly issues are the Middle East. Getting those data to our India server and sending those things, so that is very challenging, and we have to have a very high compliance things. So whenever you do anything in a UAE market, so you need to keep it very, very compliance friendly. Otherwise, your business can get like hell out of fines and all. So we have seen that. We are rectified to know that. So before entering to Middle East market, especially on UAE, so you need to check your compliance very well, very thoroughly.
Okay. Monish, just connecting from that in terms of regulations, because what do you think are the challenges in adhering to this evolving regulations, be it from a GDPR perspective or India's data protection act?
So I wouldn't really say it as a challenge, it's a given. It's the fact that it's a do or die for all of us, because the rules are going to come out probably by January or February, and there is a lot of clarity. But I think the biggest thing that is there is the consent management. I think that's the cornerstone of the DPDP today, is managing the consent, taking explicit consent from the customer and letting the customer know what you're going to use the data for and how you're going to use the data. So that is a challenge to that point that you made earlier, because you need to be able to identify and be able to build in a mechanism for the consent to be taken in a granular form, and it has to be an explicit consent. It can't be, earlier a lot of organizations used to have a negative consent. You'd have to tick to opt out. Today, you no longer can have that. You have to have an explicit consent. So it does add complexity to the processes. But the fact is that with the easing of other rules making, especially when we talk about digitization of KYC, the fact is today a lot of the data is not even visible to you. So, physical Aadhars today, from a KYC perspective, you needed, Aadhaar is the most predominant, KYC document that you have. And how do you take it? You take a physical copy and then you keep it. But today, with the DigiLocker, you do not need anything. So it's a completely seamless journey. So I think the fact is that the government has already made it easier for us to be able to comply with actually keeping this data with us. The second part is in terms of making sure what data you having and where you're having. So a complete DFD, the data flow diagram exercise is, and it's extremely challenging. It took us 6 months to identify in our system what data flows from where to where and why does it need to flow. So when you do a detailed data privacy impact assessment, you come up with the fact that, is this data really required? Do you really need to take it in this form? How do you make this flow? And you realize there is a collateral advantage of this thing, because you end up realizing there are a lot of processes that actually do not need the data. There are a lot of processes that could actually do much better. And whenever you're talking about data, you're talking about connecting with the customer. So you're making it difficult for the customer to actually come on board with you, or for you to be able to connect with the customer. So it has helped us, I would say, as an opportunity to be able to eliminate a lot of NVAs that otherwise you would have probably taken another year to go back and look at. But given this sword hanging on our head, the fact is that we did it a lot faster today.
Okay, that's interesting. Puneet, one of the things that we have been talking about is trust, of course, and in a D2C setup, basically, how are you balancing this with the data insights and also with the minimum data collection? How is that kind of going through?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. So basically, there's a deluge of information and data. As Monish also said, it's too much. How you want to use it, number one, and what are the core, things you want to cull out of it is something your focus should be on that. Plus, the security point of view has to be, kept in mind. Whatever information and consent, wherever has to be taken, those opt-ins have to be really active, so that there is, and you keep that transparency very clear with your communications whenever you do that with the customer. If you keep your transparency there, you have your opt-ins active, I think that should address what we want to do over here.
Okay. Sumit, something that I had spoken to Monish in terms of spending pattern, so I just want to understand again from a Bikaner's point of view as well, in terms of analyzing the data from a customer purchase behavior or the purchase habits, how are you addressing these privacy concerns given where we are right now today?
So again, for India, we don't have to think very, very, very long, right? So we can use the gist of it, right? And not only the consumer data, product data also be a part of it. And for other market, we need to very, very, very serious, right? For US or for Dubai or any other country, so we need to very planned way. We need to have a concern that whatever the data we have collected, so from there, what should I use, right? I cannot use their name. Some countries, I cannot use the insight also. So that is been followed in India also. In terms of SMS, just like he said that he opt out, right? And SMS, some trial regulation has been coming that every communication you have to take a permission, right? And otherwise you can't send them notifications. Similarly for WhatsApp also they're talking, right? The new regulation can also be there. So that's the reason in future, I think whatever the data inside also you are using, that consent you need to also present and also documented for your next any campaign or any kind of a communication to the customer. So that will be there.
Perfect. So I have just one question for all three of you, and I think this is where I kind of started off this discussion as well, in terms of the role of ethical AI practices basically, and how do you ensure data security and compliance in this. So, Monish, I'll probably start with you. Your take on this, the role of ethical AI practices.
So, like I said, I think it's not a question of if, it's a question of how you actually do this. It's a challenge to build a trust in the consumer, and that happens only with you actually being open and transparent with the customer, which starts off with the fact that you let the customer know what is the data that you're using, how you're going to use this data, what is it that you're going to use it for. And wherever you find that there is a gray area, you will probably have to hold back, because trust once broken, it's very difficult to mend it. So rather than going out with something that is not completely kind of tested, hold back onto it before you're able to do something. For example, again, sorry to take an example, the fact is that the first thing that you talk about using AI for is using ChatGPT for chat or email support to an agent. But you have to be very, very careful, and we started realizing this when erstwhile, in 2019, we started an email bot. And we realized the accuracy of the email bot was just about 70%. and it is not really giving you that benefit. So one is that I keep on going out and throwing out all these emails, give an answer, and then wait for 30% of the consumers to come back to me, even more frustrated than what they were the first time around. Or the other is to hold it back. And we held it back till we were confident that, if we are getting something which is 90-95% accurate. Even a human is not more accurate than that. So the fact is that once you are able to build an initial trust, it's important that you go out only then to the consumer.
Okay. Anything, Puneet, from your side in terms of this ethical AI practices? So
Yeah, so basically, would like to break it down into 3 different points. Firstly, whatever, when you're just doing in the discovery stage, you're in a pre-order stage, let all the information and the communication and the collection of data be optional. You don't have to be, stringent about putting those asterisks over there, asking for that mandatory data from the customer. Let it be his choice. Once you have that data, once a customer has done that transaction with you, you have certain data points. Ensure that all that data sits behind a walled CDP. Your customer data, platform or program, whatever you have, has to be behind walled systems. And they should not be easily accessible to any and everybody within the organization. Have restricted access. You know that it is something which is very, very critical for the business as such. Eventually, when it is being used, always ensure that we use it as a value addition and there is an opt-in from the customer. You do not only push it for sales perspective, it should be providing value to the customer.
okay. Quick 10 seconds from you. I think.
So I think by end of the day, we will all get a AI tool notification on our mobile, right? So if you, it's our responsibility, right? How you are using it. So Google is also doing, Facebook is also doing, and whatever they are listening, right? We know right that. So they are listening and they are sending a similar kind of a communication to us. And it's, again, I say that it's our responsibility and our government also there to protect these things.
Okay. Thank you, all of you. Yeah, we are done with this session today. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Lovely audience.